Are you enjoying seeing your sons step up to the moment and the whole family concept?
Bro,
You enjoying
no,
that?
I don't. I don't enjoy it. I do not. Simply because I've spent so much time trying to get this little nigga off the ledge.
Talking about King.
Yes. And now he has justifiable means to undo all of the teachings that I've been teaching.
Got it.
I do not like this. No, I do not enjoy it.
T.I. just went public with a raw, unfiltered reaction to his son, King Getty, getting dragged into one of hip-hop's most explosive feuds. He didn't hold back, calling out his own son for crossing the line by involving 50 Cent's mother's grave. This is more than just typical family drama. It's about respect, legacy, and the struggle of a father watching his principles get ignored in real time. You can hear the pain in his voice, and it tells a story that goes much deeper than just a rap beef. Let me break down exactly what's happening. T.I. earned his spot as one of the South's most respected kings, a trap pioneer who built a massive empire and commanded respect throughout the industry. However, King Harris just stepped into a war zone that's been simmering for over 20 years, involving millions of dollars, street credit, and generational pride. The tension between T.I. and 50 Cent didn't just rattle the industry. It put T.I.'s entire family legacy at risk and threatened professional bonds that took decades to form. To really understand the depth of this frustration and why T.I. is so disappointed in his son's choices, we have to look back at the moment these two hip-hop giants first collided in a battle that would come to define both of their careers. Let's rewind to the early 2000s. At that time, the South was fighting tooth and nail for respect in a hip-hop world dominated by New York, where icons like Jay-Z, Nas, and the Notorious B.I.G. had set the gold standard. T.I. was busy building his empire, with Grand Hustle Entertainment, establishing Atlanta as a major player while pioneering the trap sound that would eventually take over the globe. Meanwhile, 50 Cent was running New York with G. Riding high off the massive success of Get Rich or Die Trying, that album sold over 870,000 copies in its first week alone, cementing him as one of the most formidable forces in the game. Curtis was known for his sharp business acumen, his knack for stirring up controversy, and his absolute willingness to go to war with anyone who challenged his position. Initially, there was mutual respect between these two giants. They were both street-smart businessmen who understood that the game was about much more than just music. They had both survived heavy street situations, T.I. with his deep Atlanta connections, and 50 Slash with his Queens background and the legendary shooting that nearly ended his life. They recognized each other as authentic voices who actually lived what they rapped about. But in hip-hop, respect can turn into a rivalry fast, especially when money, territory, and ego are on the line. The first cracks started to show around 2004 and 2005, when both artists were at their commercial peaks. T.I. had just released Urban Legend and was leaning hard into his King of the South narrative, while 50 Cent was claiming dominance over the entire rap industry as the Massacre shattered sales records. This wasn't just about artistic competition. It was a battle over who controlled the markets, the venues, the airwaves, and most importantly, which narrative the hip-hop community would ultimately buy into. Both men were expanding far beyond music into films, clothing lines, and legitimate business ventures, creating a level of competition that went way deeper than just album sales. Here is where things really get interesting. The real tension started building over business moves rather than diss tracks. Both were hungry to establish multimedia empires that would last their rap careers. T.I. was breaking into acting with films like A.T.Bill while building Grand Hustle into a full-scale entertainment company. At the same time, 50 Cent was launching G-Unit Records, his clothing line, and developing his own acting career with the Get Rich or Die Trying movie. When you have two alpha personalities trying to occupy the same business spaces, something eventually has to give. According to industry insiders, there were constant disagreements over tour dates, venue bookings, and which crew had priority in certain cities. This wasn't just a rap beef, it was business warfare with real financial consequences. The situation became even more complex when both started signing artists from each other's home. TURF. T.I. was pulling talent from across the South under the Grand Hustle banner, while 50 was looking to expand G-Unit far beyond New York. This created territorial tensions that shifted the rivalry from a personal grudge into actual corporate competition. Record labels started playing both sides, trying to milk the rivalry for profit while attempting to keep their artists safe. Industry executives were essentially walking a tightrope, booking both stars for major events while making sure their paths didn't cross in a way that could spark a disaster. Then 50 started making comments about Southern rap in general, questioning both the authenticity and the commercial staying power of the entire region. In various interviews, he suggested that Southern hip-hop lacked the lyrical depth and the raw street credibility found in East Coast rap. For T.I., this wasn't just a personal jab. It was an attack on everything he had built, and a sign of disrespect toward the entire region that supported him. T.I. responded by doubling down on his king status. He made it clear that respect was non-negotiable and that 50's new arc attitude wouldn't fly when it came to belittling the South. He began dropping subtle bars in his tracks and making public statements questioning 50's relevance after the massive commercial. Peak of Get Rich or Die Trying, but 50 wasn't backing down. He had built his entire career on never retreating, from Supreme Team members to Ja Rule and anyone else who dared to challenge him. He saw T.I.'s defiance as a sign of disrespect that needed to be handled immediately, and his response was typically direct and confrontational. Things got real when their respective crews started having issues at industry events. According to multiple witnesses, there were several incidents at award shows, album release parties, and club appearances where tensions nearly boiled over into physical altercations. Security teams were constantly forced to separate their crews, and industry executives grew increasingly anxious about booking both artists for the same events. The feud reached a new level when subliminal shots started surfacing in their music. T.I.'s tracks began featuring lines that anyone paying attention could easily link back to 50, while 50's responses were far more direct and confrontational. Following his usual pattern of making beef, both public and personal, record sales became part of the battle. Both teams tracked first-week numbers meticulously, using them as ammunition in their ongoing war of words. Radio programmers found themselves stuck in the middle, trying to support both stars without appearing to take a side. The situation finally exploded in the mid-2000s, when both artists were scheduled for overlapping promotional appearances during a major industry conference. What began as industry politics had officially shifted into personal warfare, with real consequences for both their careers and their reputations. 50 Cent, never one to shy away from a confrontation, began making public statements questioning T.I.'s street credibility and business sense. He suggested that the King of the South title was something T.I. had just given himself rather than truly earned. He even went as far as questioning whether Atlanta's hip-hop scene had enough authenticity to challenge established powerhouses like New York. This was no longer just a standard rap beef. It was a direct attack on the foundation of T.I.'s persona and the regional pride that made him the face of Southern hip-hop. T.I. had positioned himself as the voice of a movement, and 50's insults threatened to undermine everything he represented. I fired back with calculated responses. Showing he wasn't intimidated by 50's reputation for destroying careers through conflict, he made it clear that being from the South didn't mean being soft, and that 50's New York attitude and past victories over other artists wouldn't work in his territory. The beef only intensified as both artists began involving their associates and label mates in the drama. G-Unit members like Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo started taking shots at Grand Hustle artists, while T.I.'s camp fired back with verbal attacks, questioning G-Unit's internal unity and business dealings. Industry insiders report that several meetings were held to try and squash the beef before things spiraled out of control. However, with both men's pride on the line, finding a compromise was difficult. Neither side was willing to be the first to back down, creating a stalemate that threatened to turn into something much more serious. The situation peaked when both artists released tracks clearly aimed at one another, although they maintained plausible deniability by not using names directly. T.I.'s lyrics became increasingly pointed, referencing specific situations and traits that could only apply to 50. Meanwhile, 50's responses followed his signature style: direct confrontation, wrapped in clever wordplay. These weren't just standard diss tracks. They were strategic moves designed to damage each other's credibility and commercial appeal. Both artists understood that in hip-hop, perception is reality, and controlling the narrative would determine who came out on top. The hip-hop media only fueled the fire, overanalyzing every lyric and public statement for hidden meanings, which kept the tension at an all-time high. Magazine covers, radio interviews, and early internet forums became the primary battlegrounds where fans and industry figures were forced to take sides. Behind the scenes, both camps were working overtime to ensure their safety without looking weak. Security details were beefed up, travel routes were constantly changed, and industry appearances required meticulous coordination just to avoid a dangerous confrontation. Now, fast forward to recently, where this rivalry took an unexpected and dangerous turn. T.I.'s son, King Harris, decided to jump into the fray. While trying to follow in his father's musical footsteps and carve out his own identity in hip-hop, King released a diss track targeting 50 Cent that caught the entire community off guard. The track was incredibly aggressive and crossed lines that even seasoned veterans of rap beef usually avoid. King went after 50's late mother, using lyrics that violated one of hip-hop's most sacred unwritten rules. You never bring family, especially deceased family members, into a conflict between artists.
Bitch ass nigga wanna say something about my mama. Your mama dead as fuck, nigga. Your mama dead as fuck. Go dig her up. Go dig her up. Fuck. Post a picture of your motherfucking mama, nigga. She dead, nigga. Pay respect, nigga. Stop fucking playing with my mama, nigga. Nigga ain't playing like that. Nigga ain't going like that, nigga.
This wasn't just a case of teenage rebellion or a desperate attempt to make a name in the rap game. This was a direct assault on one of hip-hop's most dangerous figures by the son of his longtime rival. The content was so jarring that even hardened industry veterans were stunned by the level of disrespect. Both the streets and the industry held their breath, waiting to see how 50 would react. Curtis Jackson built his entire reputation on never backing down, but responding to a teenager Evan T.I.'s son presented complications that don't exist in traditional rap feuds. This is where the story gets complicated and reveals the true human cost of these conflicts. Instead of receiving praise from his father, King's actions created a genuine crisis for T.I. The veteran rapper found himself in an impossible spot. Supporting his son meant endorsing a level of disrespect that went way too far, but criticizing him publicly meant airing family business and potentially undermining his own child. This situation highlights the unique challenges successful rappers face when raising children who want to follow in their footsteps but lack the experience and wisdom to navigate hip-hop's dangerous waters. T.I. had spent years teaching his children about respect, boundaries, and the thin line between being tough and being reckless. In this moment, the generational divide couldn't have been clearer. The footage captured the many layers of T.I.'s frustration. As a father let down by his son's judgment, a businessman worried about burned bridges, and a man who understood the gravity of the situation far better than his teenager ever could. What makes this even more complicated is the family dynamic T.I. described in that exclusive clip. He pointed out that his other son, Damani, has always kept his cool, highlighting the massive contrast in how his children handle conflict and This created a rift within the family, with one son escalating a dangerous feud, while the other chose peace and maturity. For T.I., this was no longer about a hip-hop beef. It was a test of his effectiveness as a father, a family leader, and a mentor. You could hear the exhaustion in his voice as he described the impossible position King had put him in. Years of preaching respect, boundaries, and strategic thinking were being brushed aside by teenage impulsiveness and a desperate need for clout. As he put it himself, I'm a logical, reasonable man of respect. Bro, I raised my children to be men of respect, T.I. explained, clearly showing his confusion and disappointment over how his son could act so disrespectfully, despite the values he was taught. This situation shines a light on deeper issues within hip-hop culture regarding legacy, respect, and the unwritten rules that govern conflicts between artists. T.I.'s reaction proves that even the most street-credible figures understand there are certain lines you just don't cross. Even in the heat of a feud, the beef between T.I. and 50 Cent was always about respect, territory, and business competition. However, King's involvement completely changed the nature of the conflict. By attacking 50's late mother, he violated the fundamental principles that separate a rap beef from actual warfare. For 50 Cent, this created an unprecedented dilemma. Responding to a teenager Evan T.I.'s son could make him look petty and potentially lead to legal or ethical issues. On the other hand, staying silent might be seen as a sign of weakness by some, potentially damaging his reputation for never backing down from a fight. The hip-hop community watched closely to see how the master of beef would handle the situation, knowing his response could set a precedent for how similar family-related conflicts are handled in the future. The hip-hop community's reaction was mixed, exposing deep generational and philosophical divides within the culture. Some praised King for his boldness and competitive spirit, seeing his actions as part of the genre's aggressive tradition. Others, however, criticized him harshly for crossing boundaries and potentially placing his family in danger. Industry veterans truly felt for T.I.'s position. They could recognize his son's ambition while being horrified by his lack of judgment and the possible fallout. Many older artists have faced similar hurdles with their own children entering the industry, making T.I.'s struggle a relatable one. This situation also raised broader questions about how far artists should go in a feud, specifically when families are dragged in, and whether the culture needs to move past some of its more dangerous traditions. While media coverage focused heavily on the family drama, it also highlighted how decades-old rivalries continue to influence new generations of artists and fans. For T.I., the consequences were immediate and complex. He had to publicly address King's behavior while trying to protect his own credibility and industry relationships. The exclusive footage captured a man torn between his love as a father and his professional responsibilities. Ultimately, this story serves as a cautionary tale about legacy, family, and the unintended consequences of hip-hop beef that spans generations. Struggle to rein in his son while maintaining his own reputation shows just how messy things get when personal and professional worlds collide. The beef between T.I. and 50 Cent, which had simmered for years as a relatively respectful rivalry between two successful businessmen, was suddenly complicated by a new generation that didn't fully grasp the rules, consequences, or long-term implications of their actions. Today, the situation remains tense but under control, as everyone involved navigates the complex aftermath of King's choices. T.I. is still working to guide his son while managing the fallout from the diss track, trying to balance fatherly support with the necessary course correction. On the other hand, 50 Cent has shown remarkable restraint, perhaps realizing that engaging with a teenager isn't worth the complications it would create for everyone involved. His silence reflects his evolution as both an artist and a businessman. This story is far from over. King Harris is still young and learning. He has the potential to either repair the damage through more mature actions or make things worse with continued recklessness. T.I.'s real challenge as a father is to lead his son toward wisdom, while still allowing him to carve out his own identity in the game. It's a clash between generations, a struggle between respect and rebellion, and a look at the true cost of raising royalty in the world of hip-hop. This is much more than just a rap beef. This is family drama playing out on the biggest stage in music, with consequences that will affect multiple generations and potentially reshape how hip-hop handles conflicts involving families. No cap. This situation proves that being a king comes with responsibilities that extend far beyond the recording booth, the studio, or the boardroom. The pain T.I. showed in that exclusive footage was real. It's the pain of a father watching his teachings be ignored, his professional relationships potentially damaged, and his legacy complicated by the very person he's trying to protect and guide. That's as real as it gets. It shows that even in hip-hop's most heated moments, family and respect still matter more than anything.